And with that, I'd like to introduce our panelists today. I'd like to welcome our MS expert neurologist, Dr. Mitzi Joy Williams, our
Hello,
advocacy,
everybody.
hey, our advocacy presenters, Elaine Shelley and Angel Hardy Hines, and the presenter of our family and caregiver session, Sabrina Wanamaker. I know they'll be coming on, joining us. They're coming from their sessions. So why don't we get started? Dr. Williams, a lot of questions came through for you, so perhaps we'll go ahead and get started while we wait for our other presenters to join us.
Sounds great.
Great. So first question. Let's see. This is a really popular one. So can you tell us if stress causes MS?
Very common question. So we don't have a lot of scientific evidence that necessarily says that stress causes the onset of MS. But I do have many patient reports that people first notice the symptoms of MS after a stressful event. So for instance, there will be many who said they were in maybe a car accident, and after that they began to have different symptoms, and that led to MRIs and diagnosis of MS. Or even some people may relay that it was a stressful emotional event, such as a divorce or a death in the family, before they began to have onset of symptoms. One of the difficulties with kind of recognizing what causes MS is that the lesions that people have related to MS are often forming for years before they have physical symptoms. So it's very difficult to tell when that process first started. But we don't have any definitive scientific evidence to say that stress actually causes a person to have the development of the immune spots. But there are many that have reported, as I said, that their symptoms started after a stressful event.
Great, thank you. I know you spoke to this earlier, but for those of you who didn't hear, what research programs are specifically targeting the experiences of African Americans with MS, parentheses, incidence, symptoms, treatment, quality of life, and how can we
Awesome.
advocate for and participate in such studies?
Awesome. I'm so glad you asked. So I did speak about a couple of opportunities. There are a couple of collaboratives. One of them is the National African Americans with MS Research Registry, which just rolled out in the past couple of weeks. The abbreviation is NAMSAR, and the website is www.naamsr.org, naamsr.org. And so that is a registry that was created by myself, several other Black MS physicians, as well as other MS providers. And we are looking to improve our understanding about MS in the Black population. So that's one opportunity. There also is a clinical trial that just rolled out within the past month. Called the CHIME study, CHIMES, that is looking at MS characteristics in Black and Hispanic Latino patients in the U.S. Who are taking that is for a particular medicine called Ocrevus. There are also many other ways that people can get involved. I encourage folks to look at the MS Society website, look at some of our other advocacy organization websites, and you can find information about different clinical trials that are going on. Also, clinicaltrials.gov, which is a little hard to read, but does have at least a listing of some of the clinical trials, and you can look and see if there are any that are particular or pertinent to African Americans with MS.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. So I wonder if this question might go out to Sabrina Wanamaker. Are you on? Okay. So next question, I think I'll take it back to you, Dr. Williams.
Mm-hmm.
When should one consider changing their MS medications?
Also, an excellent question. There are usually about four reasons why people switch or why we switch MS therapies. Number one, if someone is having more symptoms of their MS, so if someone's having relapses, that's a reason that we change. If their clinical status is changing, if the MRIs are changing, even in the absence of clinical symptoms, that can indicate to us that the medication is not working like it's supposed to. So clinical symptoms, MRI changes. If someone is having a side effect where they can't tolerate the medicine, that is another very common reason why we switch medicines. So a side effect, like let's say they have stomach upset, or let's say they have headaches associated, that may be a reason they stop taking. Or if someone is having like an adverse effect from the medication, such as let's say their liver tests go up and they won't come back down, or their white blood count goes too low. So those are all reasons why people would come off of a medication and potentially switch therapies for MS. So ineffectiveness or difficulty with side effects or tolerability.
Great. Great. Next question. Let's see. Dr. Williams, this is an interesting question. So this person says, with diabetes and hypothyroidism going hand in hand, and then yada mess, how impaired is the autoimmune system with these pre-existing conditions?
So, autoimmune diseases can run in families or they can run in the same person, meaning for some people with MS, we talk a lot about the genetics of MS. It's not a directly inherited disease, but certainly I do have some patients with families where they'll have other family members who have MS. I will also have patients who have other family members with autoimmune disease. So let's say a cousin has lupus, an aunt may have rheumatoid arthritis. And in the same vein, I have some patients that have multiple autoimmune diseases. So there are some people who have MS and they may also have lupus or MS and rheumatoid arthritis, etc. And so we can see autoimmune diseases run in the same person, but it is not necessarily a guarantee that if someone has one autoimmune disease that they will have more than one.
Great. Great. Okay. So the next question coming through is an interesting one. Is it true that the virus that causes mono is a factor in the development of MS?
So the short answer is yes. So Epstein-Barr virus, which causes mono, we used to call it the kissing disease when I was in high school. Somebody be out for kissing. But so the virus that causes mono, there is an increased risk of development of MS for people who've had or been exposed to that virus. However, everyone that gets mono or has Epstein-Barr virus does not necessarily get MS. So that is one of the factors that can be associated, but certainly is not the only factor leading to increased risk for MS.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to share that I had MS. I had mono before I knew I had MS. I had mono in college, a pretty bad case of it where I was hospitalized for a couple of days on campus. So when I read that study about that, I was surprised to hear that. But I had a very bad case of it decades before I was diagnosed.
Yeah, so it's not uncommon. And sometimes people actually even have had exposure, but may not have had the typical symptoms of mono. So even for those who have not had symptoms, they can still have, evidence of exposure to Epstein-Barr virus and eventually get diagnosed with MS. But yes, that's absolutely very common.
Right. Someone's wondering, if the FDA got generic pills for relapsing remitting MS now, or just brand name pills for MS are not generic. So I think they're trying to understand the efficacy between, or if there's a difference between generic and not generic medications, if I'm getting that right.
Right. So there is some difference between generic and brand name medications. With MS, there are a couple of generics on the market, but not many. The main difference is that most of the generic drugs don't have to do the same large scale studies that many of the brand names do. And sometimes there are questions if the effectiveness is similar. But I think that because it's relatively new kind of territory for MS, it kind of remains to be seen how much of a difference would be if there is a difference in efficacy for some of the generics that will be coming to the market.
Great. Great. Well, it looks like our other presenters have joined us. Welcome. Thank you so much. We're just diving into our community questions right now. And I wanted to share a question that came from, let's see who wants to answer this. This question is around depression and fatigue. This is a big question. How do I fix it? How do I address dealing with depression and fatigue?
I mean, I can share how I've dealt with that. Talk to your doctor, talk to your neurologist, not just about your DMTs, your disease modifying treatment, but on symptom management, because I suffered from extreme fatigue, which led to depression because I'm very fatigued and I'm not feeling like I'm not getting enough done on the job or with my children. And so I was prescribed by my neurologist medication to help me with fatigue, and it has really helped. It truly helps. So don't be afraid to be an advocate for yourself, because you can get help.
Absolutely. So there are lots of different ways to address the different symptoms of MS. And as Angel said, certainly medications absolutely can play a part if you and your doctor sit down and feel like that's appropriate. But there are also things that we can do to help some of those symptoms. So things like diet, exercise make a big difference. I like to talk about the difference you feel after Thanksgiving dinner. At my house, we want to go lay down and take a nap versus when you eat like a nice big salad. So there are other things that, in addition to medication, can also help improve symptoms of fatigue. But she was absolutely right. You should sit down and talk to your doctor and see what is the best kind of way to approach it for you.
And some of the other things that you may be able to do are also include finding things that you enjoy intentionally. And so, do I like to watch different movies and cartoons? And so for me, I'll sit down and watch old school Looney Tunes sometimes, but you want things that help to increase your mood. And so finding those things and making a list. I'm big about lists because sometimes when we're in that space, we forget. And who can remind me? How can I remind myself that, you know what, I do like this. Let me go over here and try to do something else. And really, when you get that urge to go lay down because you want to give into that feeling, because our body responds to our emotions, how do I combat that? So instead of going to lay down, I'm going to go and sit this place instead, or I'm going to go walk around outside or sit on the front porch and avoid that physical response sometimes that we may feel when we kind of get in that space.
Great. Thank you. So Sabrina, maybe you can speak to this a little bit. Someone says, my husband is not supportive or dependable. Are there MS living communities?
So when you think about, MS living communities where you may be able, are you talking about to reside in or just additional support? So I would start with your local MS society first and foremost, but you also want to look at assisted living places. If you are in a place where you need that full-time assistance, are there assisted living places that you may qualify for? Do you qualify for home health aides that can come in to help and assist you with some things? But looking again at who's in your support system. Do you have family members or friends? But also the MS navigation that helps to find you different resources. And Aunt Bertha is something I absolutely love because they have different community resources listed, and you may be able to find a group of help and maybe not necessarily one supportive person, but really looking at a group to see how that can help to mitigate some things.
Great, great. I have a couple questions that have come through around advocacy. So maybe this is a two-part question. What does being an MS activist look like and include? And second to that, how do I get involved in advocacy with the MS Society?
Sure. So when you sign up to be an MS activist, you can do anything from just hitting send on a text or email to your local and state and federal legislators on the policy initiatives that the MS Society is working on. And then you also could join your state government relations committee. And on that committee, we work on the things that are happening in that state. Like in my state, we've been working on a prescription drug pricing affordability bill in the state of Illinois. So that's something that we work on, gathering stories about access to meds for people with MS. And then you share your story with your local leaders. And then you can do the same thing on the federal level after being active for a bit. At state level, you can go and lobby at the Capitol. So there's a lot to be done there. So I definitely recommend looking up and signing up to be an activist.
Great, great. We'll definitely have some resources following this call. You can also join by texting Black MS to 52886, and I'm gonna sign you up right away. Great. Here's another question. Maybe Dr. Mincy, you can speak to this. This person says, I often go blank at the doctor and report a good update. I always leave feeling so disappointed in myself that I forget so much. How can I keep up with what's been happening with my MS and give a more accurate report?
So there are a couple of different ways. So I am personally a fan of pieces of paper. So I'm kind of old school. I write things down. So I have many patients, depending on what your preferred method of recording things is. I have some people who have like a little calendar and they may jot down different things that have happened. I very much encourage people to prepare for their doctor's visits. Like when I have a parent-teacher conference with my kids, I write down kind of the questions that I want to make sure I get addressed. When you go to the doctor, write down those top 2 or 3 things before you get in. Whether writing down means you have a notebook or writing down means you record a memo on your smartphone or you dictate something into your smartphone. There are different ways that you can have that information handy so that when you go, you will have at least, your top couple of questions addressed and you don't leave and feel like you need to call right back, because everybody knows it's harder to get things answered when you leave and go home and then you try to call back later. Mm-hmm. So just make sure that you prepare and you have an agenda when you go to those visits so that you can make sure that your needs and your questions are addressed before you leave the doctor's office. But pen and paper or use your smartphones because they are really smart sometimes.
Perfect. Great. Stay right there, Dr. Williams. Here's another question coming at you.
I'm ready.
So with flu season approaching, can you share any guidance around people with MS getting a flu shot? Is it safe?
So we usually do recommend that people with MS get the flu shot. Now, I have a lot of folks who say, I'm not getting that flu shot. Every time I get the flu shot, I get sick. There are some exceptions, but by and large, we do recommend the flu shot, the flu vaccine, not the live vaccine, okay? But we do recommend the regular vaccine, the injection, because we know that in some cases, if people actually get the flu, they can have what we call a pseudo relapse, where their MS symptoms will come back. And sometimes if the infection is severe enough, they can actually go into a real relapse. So we recommend the vaccine, that people generally get that on a yearly basis. Certainly there are exceptions to that, but it is generally safe if people people do not get live vaccines. And then there are some cases where live vaccines are recommended depending on your age and your risk factors for other things like shingles, et cetera. So always talk to your doctor to make sure that you are doing the best course of action for you, but flu across the board, we usually recommend for everyone.
Great, it's helpful. Okay, so this is another question that keeps coming up. People want to know about the impacts of marijuana use as a for like a symptom management, and also, you know, can you speak to sort of herbal medications versus the disease modifying therapies?
Me? Okay, sure. I was like, me? Does anybody else want to jump in? Okay. So I always get a lot of questions about marijuana. Everybody wants to know about it. Everyone wants to talk about it. You know, the honest answer is I do believe that in the next couple of years, we will have better research. So most of the research that we've had traditionally has been, European studies. They have looked at kind of the oil forms of THC or cannabinoids, which is the family that marijuana is in. And what we've seen, at least from those studies, is that the symptoms that are most commonly affected are things like spasticity, as well as nerve pain in some cases. I do believe it also has an effect on anxiety for a lot of my folks. I think the thing that we have to kind of think about is that when we talk about the different forms that are used, different forms may or may not have different side effects. And so, for instance, if you talk about something that is edible, it may not have, the side effects of something that is smoked, which smoke generally is not very good for our lungs. And then we also have to think about other effects depending on the concentration of things that can affect cognition, right? So when people kind of smoke traditional marijuana, there are issues related to cognition being a little bit slower, as well as, in some old cases, they used to revoke kind of a motivational syndrome where people really don't feel like doing anything. So I think that there's a lot more that we'll learn now that it will be now that it's legalized in some states. And so I'm very hopeful that we'll have more solid research. It does not treat the actual autoimmune problem. And so when we talk about herbal remedies, certainly I have some patients who have, other, functional medicine doctors that they see. They may see naturopathic doctors. I certainly have many people who do well with those types of remedies. However, they do not actually treat the underlying autoimmune process. So again, there are things that we do that help our body naturally, but we don't have evidence that those things actually treat the immune system attacking itself. So, so I have a lot of people that do a combination of those things, but that's the main difference.
Awesome. Thank you. So I have a question here for our advocacy presenters, Elaine or Angel. They're asking, when was a time that you felt you made an impact as an MS activist? Do you have anything you can share?
Sure. I shared, people here were on my breakout session, I shared a story of being on the Hill at the Capitol a couple years ago, with my fellow activists, when we were meeting with legislators to talk about access to care and to fight against repealing and replacing the Affordable Care Act. And I really, really felt like I was helping to affect change, and sharing our story that day when they're bringing a vote on the Capitol. There's nothing more powerful than that. I also was asked to testify at our state capitol about my experience with access to medication, and share my story there. And I was so happy to be able to speak with the legislators that day on, everyone should have a right to affordable medication, but they have to be able. There's a great quote out there that someone at the MS Society has, but you have to be able to afford it, right? So, so testifying that day, I really felt like I was making change. And although it did not get out of committee, they're still talking about it, and we're right back at it in this next I forget, I'm having an MS cloud, but this next year, we're going to still be fighting for it this year. So every bill that we talk about and fight for is not going to pass, but people, as long as we're keeping our story out there and being MS warriors, I think is the most important thing.
Thank you for sharing that. I have another great question that has come through. I think I'll toss this to you, Sabrina. There's a couple in our community here. They both have MS, and they want to know, how do we live with it and also be a caregiver?
Okay. Sorry about that. It's definitely going to be really understanding that, first and foremost, because we have the same diagnosis doesn't mean that we experience it the same. And understanding the differences between what I need versus what you need. And then looking at, are we even able to fulfill those needs for each other, or do we need to build our support system? The one thing I am truly learning as someone who also lives with MS is that you have to surround yourself with the right people. Regardless of how independent we are and how much we can function, there will be days that you need that help and you need that support. And so really identifying those individuals, and it takes transparency to be honest, to say, I need help, which is hard for us to do, especially in the African-American community. We want to be strong all the time, but realizing that asking for help is not a weakness. Utilizing the community resources, the insurance resources, and your family and friends, all of those things are really important. And so really look at how you can surround yourself with the right people, but also what are the differences in what we need from each other? And how can we meet those needs?
Great. I'm going to keep you up here. Someone is looking for some advice about how to plan conversations with your family members and disclosing that they have MS.
It's not an easy discussion. I'm still, very newly diagnosed. And so there are some people who are just learning about it. I think first and foremost, it is because we're still trying to sit with it ourselves and really understand. And so admitting like, this is what it is, but I don't know what it's going to look like in the future. And it's hard to sit with uncertainty, and then it makes it even harder to tell someone because they have the questions. And then sometimes they have I know this person that had MS and those types of things. And they go into stories. But I had to get to a point in saying, please don't tell me about the worst case scenarios of people that you know. Give me the positive stories. I need the positivity and the support, but it's going to take some transparency, and it's not going to be an easy conversation, but also being particular about those first people that you have that conversation with, because everyone, again, is not worthy of your story. People will receive it very differently, and you want those people around you who are going to support you and uplift you. And disclosure to everybody is not required.
Mm-hmm. I also think too, if you are nervous, you could think about, writing it down and putting it into an email to some of your close family members so that you can tell everyone in that particular group at once. That way you don't have to keep having the conversation over again. That could help. And I just try and stay positive when I share it so that I can get some positive energy back at me too. That is the most important thing to me, because like Sabrina said, I do not want to hear about all the sadness when we're just now talking about it. So I try and stay as positive as possible.
And I have, I can't share a personal experience with that, but for some of my patients, especially some who are very, very private and may not have it disclosed to very close family members, sometimes I'll recommend they bring somebody to a visit with them, and then that way there's a little bit more of a neutral ground and that person can ask questions. And sometimes we do it that way as well, or either someone may be on the phone while we're discussing kind of diagnosis and MRIs so that, I can help field some of the questions and some of the uncertainty, and then they can follow up that conversation at home as well.
Great. Great. So, Dr. Williams, everyone was really excited about that chime study that you shared. And I want to
Yes.
know again, can you share again how people can sign up?
Right. So the CHIME study is, so a couple of things. So the CHIME study is a clinical trial, a phase 4 clinical trial looking at Black African Americans and Hispanic Americans taking Ocrevus. So that is one that will have to be signed up for if your doctor's office is participating. So you would have to contact your neurologist and see if they are participating in that study. So there are only 30 sites right now across the country that are participating in that study. The registry, however, is open to everyone. So that's the National African Americans with MS Registry. And that's something that anybody can sign up for if they go on the website. But you just contact your doctor's office, see if they're participating. And then if they're not in that study, then the registry study is still available for folks to sign up for.
Great. Thank you. This time has flown. I think we have time for maybe one more question before we wrap today. And Dr. Williams, this is coming up on the panel too. Can you share how you were talking with your patients about the potential COVID vaccine? People are concerned about that.
Great question. So lots of folks are very concerned about the vaccine. I still think that we have a lot of information that we need to find out, so there's a lot of hesitancy even in the medical community in some cases because of the timeline of how the vaccine is made. I think that honestly, we'll have to see when it comes out. Most vaccines usually take 12 to 18 months to really be developed. So, we're hearing a lot of reports that there'll be one out next month. Somebody else is saying, no, we won't have one till next year. So I think that once we see the timing, kind of how long it's taken to develop, then there'll be a lot more information. But I think you read the information that's available, speak with your doctor about it, kind of get their thoughts and opinions on it, and then make a decision from there. But I think we still have a little more. We need a lot more information on that before it would be, I think, widely accepted, especially if it's developed very, very quickly.
That's right.